Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us, whether you're watching live right now or catching us on demand. I'm Matthew Wiles, and I'm joined by Sam Walker down in our London office, who is the head of sales here at CityRise. Sam works with investors every single day, from people buying their first off-plan property right through to seasoned portfolio builders. So he sees firsthand what separates a great off-plan investment from a costly mistake, which, we do hear about those things from time to time. In this session, he's going to go through and share his top 5 things he believes every investor should be looking out for before they commit to an off-plan investment purchase. Whether it's your first-time investment or whether it's your 10th, the next 30 to 40 minutes are going to save you time, save you money, and quite possibly a few sleepless nights, which I'm sure a few people might be having anyway with the heat wave that's hit the UK this week. Sam, welcome. Give everyone a quick sense of who you are and the kind of investors you work with.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, look, it is absolutely sweltering in London here. So I'm glad to be on with you in a nice air-conditioned office. But for me, this is not the first office I've worked in. My property skills range far and wide. I started as a negotiator way back when for one of the leading estate agents in London. I've been in the industry for over sort of 10 and a bit years. And what I've worked with in that time in a dedicated new homes and investment specialist division for one of the biggest developers as well. So I've had that journey, and it's taken me through doing the viewings, walking onto a building site and pointing at the sky and saying, look, that's actually where your view could be. And I've gone from that all the way through to helping the portfolio investors just look at a spreadsheet. So I'm well versed in it. After leaving estate agency, I managed to get my foot in the door with one of the developers I worked with, internationally renowned, working out of the Middle East and working in the UK as well. So for me, I've always gravitated towards that off plan. I find that for me, that's where the best value is where the most excitement is. And I'm sure we're going to go into a few reasons why, but it's such a powerful method in today's market. So that UK market for me, 10 years and hopefully 10 more, all within off plan.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sam. Quick housekeeping note, if you're with us live, please drop any questions into the Q&A box, which will be somewhere around the edge or below, and we'll get as many answers, we'll get as many of those answered as we can at the end. If you're watching on demand, you can still ask questions, and that's going through straight to the team, and we'll drop a link in the description under the video. Right, Sam, let's get into it. So top sort of points that we're going to look at, the first one being location. But you've told me before that location for off-plan is a bit different to buying completed property. Can you talk to us sort of why that is?
Yeah, of course. I think, look, off plan for me and my experience with all of the investors I've worked with, they all understand the key point. You're buying ahead of the market. So that location, it needs to be assessed on sort of what's going on. It's not just where it is today. Within that London market, we are sort of hinging as the big engine of the UK property market. No longer the case, and people are often now, from the London standpoint, coming to us and saying, where are we looking at? Where's that next regeneration? What's the next up and coming zone? So we talk about regeneration and where them sweet spots are. For me, regeneration is really simple. We're talking about the things that have got a committed infrastructure, things that are really going to change for the people that live there. Transport upgrades into and out of the area. We know that people are traveling a lot more now. Employment growth is obviously a massive factor, and is very topical this week with some of the politics that are going on. But those council-backed master plans are driving in employment into the areas. They're really the stuff that we need to be looking at as a regeneration. And I think the key signifiers for what a regeneration can be. Let's talk about HS2 straight off the bat. I mean, I know there's been a lot back and forth, Matt, on where it's going to be, where it's going to end up. But ultimately, every time we see positive news come out of the HS2 scheme, we see that every station along the way is seeing a little bump in the local property market. It's really, really powerful. So we need to look out for these transport links, and the Northern Powerhouse projects easy for me to say. They are supremely important in today's market. Anything with a university expansion, anything that's driving in what could be 30, 40, 50,000 students into the area, not all of them leave. And a lot of them really have ties emotionally to that market. So we need to have a look at that. And when we look at that public planned realm investment, we look at Northampton as an example, which I'll touch on shortly. We're seeing 1.2 billion being put in to what is a facelift of the town centre. We're seeing it become, for the residents that are there and the people that are moving to the area, a great place to be. And when the government and the councils are really buying into an area, there's no reason why you shouldn't either. And I think when we look at these cities that we talk about, Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, Birmingham, they've all been outperforming the UK average. And we have to understand why. And for me, the very first conversation it always comes down to, and any objection that any investor that's watching or may speak to me after might have, the easy one for me, supply and demand. We look at that government target of 1.5 million new homes. We're nowhere near it, little hint. But we also have a growing population where these little things are happening. And we can see that there's not enough houses being built, and we've got a growing population. And I always think we're going to touch on finances shortly, Matt, but Bank of Mum and Dad's, the second largest bank in the country, they are formally putting in the money into their sons, their daughters' projects and their first homes. There's fewer and fewer opportunities, not just in housing, but also in the schemes that allow them to buy. What do these young people do? They're young professionals that have come out of really good education. They're traveling with this infrastructure we're talking about and the travel. They're looking to rent, they're looking to get out there. And that demand in places like Manchester, it's a huge growth. London, we know it is what it is, but these cities are coming in and eclipsing that massively. But I can see you nodding. I'm going to give you a little red flag just as we're in the oversupplied city centres. I know. There's a lot of people, investors wise, that they sort of speak to me and say, well, I've heard about Birmingham. I've heard about, the bubble that was there. And why would I buy in Liverpool? There's thousands of units going on. Yes, there are, Matt. But what we're looking at now, for the first time really on ONS figures, that now the average tenant will consider a 35-minute journey suitable when selecting their place of residence. A lot of these residents aren't necessarily looking in that city centre. So we're not looking at oversupplied city centres. We're not looking where the demand is now coming away from. We're looking at these little isolated pockets. Really, we're going to benefit from all that infrastructure pipeline that's coming through, but it's in a really easy commutable distance for the tenants that are in there. So the real principle of this part of where I'm going to sort of lead you to it is it's not just about buying and hoping. What I'd like for people to do, and investors that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, is let's have a look at the story that's already being written. And I'll point you to a Manchester development. It's close to our heart, the Trafford regeneration that's going on there. Ineos, Mr. Ratcliffe, the United fans will know him very well, but he's pumping in an absurd amount of money to get the stadium built. Just this week, we had information that the 100,000-seater stadium is going to be approved. That is going to allow for the wider infrastructure of transport, leisure, pleasure, schooling. We're going to see a lot of jobs. There's over 7,000 jobs that will be created in building what will be the key destination in the north. When we saw this and we reverse engineer it slightly, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which was most recently built, we look at what happened there. A lot of people saw what was happening. Initially, it was a 400, 500 million pound investment. By the end, it was 1 billion. They put a school in, they put in a lot of different things that went into the area. We've seen Beyonce there now. We've seen the NFL there now. But what had actually happened, and the key thing, those that bought in when they followed the story that was already being written by the government, the average house price of a one bed there, 375,000. Now, today, £525,000. If you'd have bought in a pocket just away from that, you're not seeing the same level of growth and you would have missed out on that. And when we consider that was £1 billion being spent in Tottenham, we then look at £8 billion being spent in Manchester. We've then got the HS2. We've then got infrastructure landing. These stories that are out there, they are there to be listened to. And there's a lot of political noise. There's a lot of things that would take you away, a lot of negatives. But if you are following what the government is doing, what the infrastructure that is already in place, the green belt planning, all of this is fantastic. And major employers are flocking to these areas for a reason. I mentioned Northampton, Amazon putting in an office, a head office in Northampton. It's a huge, huge benefit. And we have to look at where those people are going to live. So you don't buy a story that you're hoping will start. You buy sensibly. You buy into a story that's already being written.
Definitely. So essentially what you're saying then is that Beyonce is coming to Manchester.
I'd like to agree, but I don't know. I mean, Sabrina Carpenter's, she's the new kid on the block. Maybe Taylor Swift. Maybe we'll go in a different direction for Manchester. But we know
all good. So serious note though. So for anyone watching this now or people that are tuning in on demand, Sam, could you give us your sort of top 3 points that someone should look at when assessing the location of their investment?
Absolutely, Matt. Look, really, really short and simple. Local authority master plan. Really, really simple. Point 1. If we're then looking at number 2, let's look at the infrastructure that's being spent. The capita per person, unbelievable. It's a demographic that you have to be looking at. And then when we look at point number 3, employment and population growth, it is the key signifier for any reason. Rental demand is going to go up because there is more demand than there is supply.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam. You straight from the off, you are demonstrating, an incredible amount of expertise, and everybody really, really appreciates it. So we'd love to hear more. So number 2, second point we're going to look at is I think a lot of first-time off-plan investors completely overlook, and it's the developer themselves. So why does that matter so much? Why does it matter to look at and research the developer as well as everything else that we're going to talk about?
Yeah, of course. And look, Matt, it's a great point to raise. It's almost like we knew what we were doing when we set out on our journey in property, right? Because I think the thing with thing like off-plan, I mentioned in my introduction, I did actually at one stage stand in a building site just in the green area. We were following health and safety, I assure you. But you point at the sky and say, look, that's where your view could be. Now, when you deliver that dream, that's where I'm going to be living, that's where my tenant's going to be viewing from, you're not just buying into that property, you're buying into a promise that is going to get delivered. And for an investor, the most important part here is delivered on time and to spec that you're expecting. That is a really, really key thing, because when you're buying this, a lot of strategy will go involved, and we're going to talk about when the strategy kicks in. But right now, we know that we're planning our money and we're planning our investments around when this is complete. And the single biggest risk for an off-plan is that failure or the delay. And they're so important. And for me, look, we have to do our due diligence on a developer. It's a non-negotiable. At City Rise, we are really taking care of this, and our head of developments, Mike, is out there every single day speaking to different developers. And I've got a sales team here that are really desperate to sell more properties, and I wish I could sell all of the ones that we turn away, but we have to, because ultimately we're tying our name into it. And as an investor, you would also be tying your name into it. And if you're then talking about the accountant, you're talking about a wife, a partner, a business colleague, whatever it might be, we know these recommendations come in. I've just got this yield here, I've got here. So we need to make sure that when we're giving these recommendations as agents or industry experts, we need to make sure that the due diligence is done. And those facts are really, really important. And I'll cover that for you quickly. If we're looking at track records, really key place to start. I love a track record. Anyone that has built, completed, they're already sold out the previous scheme. They sold out the scheme before that. It's delivering money for investors. I think for us, that is the first and foremost point you would look at. And I'm sure many investors are probably already looking down that path. But when we then look at the financial strength of the developer, sometimes this gets forgotten about. And I know it's something at City Rise we do. We make sure that the finances are in place to actually complete the scheme. And it's a really simple fact, but again, it's something that really sometimes goes under the radar. I've dealt with many investors over my time who have invested. Something's fallen through. There's a snag in the conveyancing process. What happened? Well, the developers just run out of money. It's an unfortunate world we live in, and I touch wood. Everyone that we're speaking to here doesn't experience that, but it can. So really safeguarding against that, financial checks are really, really important. And the financial checks can extend to building partners, contractors. We've all dreamt of that brand new kitchen. We've all dreamt of that conservatory. I'm going to do the garden extension. And then you get the cowboy builder that comes round and tape measure doesn't quite hit the wall, and I could throw that in for you. You're immediately put off. You're immediately thinking, actually, I might need to pay a little bit more money here. Well, a developer is often going to have contractors that they trust, that is on site, and especially a really well-established developer, they're going to have contractors that got a proven track record, not just with that developer, but elsewhere. So you can take a lot from that. For me, working in a state agency, it was my absolute go-to. Next point over on this is the NHBC LABC. And I know that's a lot of acronyms for you, Matt, and you're looking at me squinting, but these are warranty providers. These are top draw, absolutely the people you want to be seeing on your warranty. And a warranty for you is something that a 10-year build warranty, structural, yes, we understand that. But what a lot of people don't realize is that when you go to get your warranty, you actually have to provide, especially with an HBC, the list of materials you're using, the practices in which you're implementing those materials. So if you're getting that warranty, yes, you're protected for 10 years. Yes, that covers you against any unforeseen circumstances, but it also gives you peace of mind that this was built with the best materials in the best possible way. So it's really an important thing that if it's got a building warranty, that was my get out of jail free card. I sold a lot of flats over my time in London and around the sort of middle of England by just saying it's got an HBC. What could go wrong? And people do buy into that. And I think for you as an investor, you could definitely take that on board. If we then look at the history of previous developments, touched on it a little second ago, have they got all of the above? Has this been a continuing? It's really, really, really important. And that funding structure that we sort of touched on, and I said I'd loop back to, we need to make sure your deposit is protected as an investor. Where are they held? What is the payment schedule? These are questions we ask up front and we're being protected about. It's really, really important that you understand where your money is going, because ultimately, from the first step of a reservation through to the completion, you're parting with some hard-earned money. Whether this is your first or 10th investment, this is something that you've earned, and we should be really cautious about where it goes. And the difference really in this entire thing, if you're going to simplify it to the really easiest approach on this, is what has the developer done from their first to their 10th scheme? You know, if they're building the same product, but the first one was amazing, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Really, really simple. If the first scheme was a small 2-unit conversion of an end of terrace, and actually their 10th one is 170 units, doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It means that along the way, the journey is really, really important. And just to go in to us a little bit on this, that journey, our journey with these developers start way before any of the investors will get involved. Mike, our esteemed head of development, will go and do these checks and he'll speak to these people. And I said that we turn them away, and we do, because it's really important that we understand the financials. We understand absolutely about it. So we approach developer vetting at the absolute top drawer. So any investment agency that you work with, you should really ensure that they are of the highest quality. The local agent that you buy from, unfortunately, they don't have the expertise that we do. And every single investor, small, big, first, last, they should be asking, show me your last 3 completed schemes. What were they valued on completion versus reservation? Really simple.
Thanks, Sam. And I see a bit of a continuum there. So we were looking at location, and you were talking about, buy into the story that's already happening. And it seems to be similar there with developers, buy into the story that they're on, and look into that quite well. So thank you for that. So this is where, just going back to the agents working with, would you say that working with a good agent can actually de-risk the process for the investor? Because I suppose you could say we've done all the due diligence already.
100%. And for us, I think, look, if we're going to really just expand on that point, we're putting our name to this. And, City Rise has exploded. We've got 2 offices now. We've got a sales team that I'm very fortunate to head up and be responsible for. That doesn't happen from ripping one investor off, finding another, let's face it, happy idiot, I think the term is, and then doing that and rinse and repeat. Our name would be mud. So we have to understand that from a City Rise point, our journey and our story, yes, loved what you just said. We're going to go buy into the story that's already been written. These developers that have got proven track records. These are developers that are able to deliver financially. These are developers that are protected and using the best warranties. Our journey was there. So the story is well underway. We are going to sell these units. Are you getting involved in a positive story where the inevitable ending? We've all watched a film, Matt, where you go, I know what's going to happen next. This is the type of investments that we get involved in. You can predict the ending, and it's always a good ending. If we then look at some of the least specialists, some of the less experienced, some of the more local agents, they just don't know the questions to ask. They're happy to get the stock on. They're happy to advertise on Rightmove. They're happy to advertise on Zoopla. But when that buyer comes through, they're not guiding them. When they're speaking to a developer, they're not guiding them. So it is really about buying into that journey and ensuring that you're surrounding yourself with the best people.
Thanks, Sam. Another really, really interesting points made there. So thank you. So moving on to the third point. Once you've found the right location and the right developer, you still have to choose an actual unit. So my question to you, Sam, is not all units within the same scheme perform equally, do they?
It's a really common misconception. And I think that of all of the years I've been doing it, it's one of those, if I had £1 for every time I've been told that, I'd be a millionaire. It really is. It's something that we have to look at through the tenant lens. And I think that now more than ever, with the renters' rights and with some of the EPC changes and with some of the government changes of everything that's gone on recently, it's very difficult to buy into the bad news and go, well, any property is a good property. I'm just going to get myself on the market. The wheel will keep turning. But a tenant's no longer a commodity that we can just replace. It's not something that we can get in and out. So for me, I always take an investor back to the beginning and say, look, who are we buying this for? It's not for you. It's going to be for a tenant. Who's the tenant? Let's look at it. And if you're looking at a tenant's journey at the moment, whilst I'm saying there's not a lot of supply out there, they are going to shortlist probably a handful of properties, and they're not going to go for the cheapest. They're not going to go for the ground floor that's next to a bin storage because that's all the investor wanted to invest in. They're going to be looking at what suits their lifestyle. So when we're at the start of the build, if we're looking at two identical units, they could have meaningfully different rental yields. The resale values could be meaningfully different. The floor level, the aspect, the view, the layout, the balcony, the parking, they really affect what a tenant wants, right? So when we're looking at who is going to rent that specific unit, everyone wants a top floor. Everyone wants a balcony that's south facing. Can everybody afford that? No. So we then look at that wider net. Let's cast it. Let's look at the next person in. Is there natural light? Is the amenities good? Is the building good? All of these really amazing things can work, but they are not the same. We have to avoid the pitfalls of going down north-facing units in the wrong position. Ground floor, as I mentioned, no outdoor space, units next to the bin stores, lift shafts going off. Your tenant now is in the most equipped position to turn around and say, I hear ground floor every 5 minutes. I don't like what I can't sleep. I can't do this. It will be your lettings agent. It will be our managed services. It will be you that receives that call as an investor saying, can you please do something about this? So we have to make the right layouts work for the local tenant demographic versus what actually just looks good on paper. I think one of the examples used with Manchester is we're seeing a huge demographic of Manchester at the moment, 40% more interest today in one beds than there were a year ago. So that market is coming away from the 2 beds. And I've dealt with many developers that say, I only buy 2 beds. These investors, I only buy 2 beds. That's what I work on. That's my yield. But they play a very, very different role depending on where you're buying. And I think it's a really key thing to say, look, if we look at it through the tenant's lens, if you're buying right at the start of the development, you're getting the best pick of what's there. You're not coming in to mop up a discount deal at the end. There's a reason why it's cheap. It's not going to rent out for the same amount.
Brilliant. So to recap on a couple of bits there then, the decision isn't just which development, it's which unit, on which floor, facing which way as well.
Definitely. And look, the reinforcement of everything that we're talking about here for an investor that might be taking this on board. Yes, you will be phoned by, I'm sure, numerous agents, and you will be phoned hopefully by one of my guys. But we will be in that conversation with you going, look, we need to ensure that we're buying the unit that is best for the tenant. And if that means an additional 5,000, 10,000, If the budget is there for you, let's not scrimp and save, because the capital appreciation over 10 years or 5 years, if we're refinancing, if whatever the strategy is, we are going to be looking at what can we get the returns on. And it might be more painful up front. You might have a holiday in mind as a first time investor. You might be having a second purchase in mind, but it only takes that one poor purchase to set you back 6 months to a year at the end of your strategy. So if we start by front loading, who's my tenant going to be here? Who's going to pay me the most? Unfortunate world we live in, but that's it. We have to look at the collateralized growth, the compounded interest on our capital appreciation. It's really important we select the best possible unit rather than the cheapest.
Again, so much knowledge, so much advice. Thank you, Sam. So let's move on to point 4, the numbers. And Off-Plan has but for the sake of everyone watching, and obviously everyone watching on demand, the Off-Plan model is different to buying a completed property. So Sam, please can you walk us all through it?
Yeah, look, it's going to sound really stupid, but this is actually the quickest point, and I'm going to whip through this quite quickly, because whilst we talk about how the tenant, how the strategy, where the area, and we're looking through those points, an off-plan payment structure is really simple. For us, it's a reservation fee, and that protects you as a buyer as much as it does the developer, because the developer, unknown little trade secret here, the developer will often use a reservation funds to pay their solicitor. There's often that little bit there that just takes it away. But your money's protected and it comes off the total cost more often than not. So you've actually already made a down payment. But it also protects you against being gazumped, which is a word from the first days of me being in property 10 years ago, where everyone was coming and going, oh, hang on, that south-facing balcony unit, I'll offer you another 10 grand. Take it away from them. Once you've got that reservation fee, it comes off the market. You've secured it. Really simple. First 24, 48 hours, it's going to be absolutely hectic. Your head's going to be in all the paperwork. You're going to be signing stuff for solicitors, for me, for them, and it goes quiet. Goes really, really quiet. Exchange then happens where the solicitor, a really good one, 28 days, will have drafted up everything that possibly needs to do, protected you. That's when your initial 10 to 15% lands, depends on the property, depends on a lot of different things there. But ultimately, you almost go, Sam, what happened? You were all over me last week. What's going on? I'm like, leave it with the solicitor. It's fine. It's not a problem. The exchange comes in. That's when you get your contract. You're all happy. You're legally ready for that key to be completed. And if you're using CityRise, we'll get a tenant in on day one. That's me doing a bit of selling. But if we actually look at what's going to happen, then the stage payments for every year that you've got left, there'll usually be a 5, 10, possibly 15%. But if we're looking at something that's completing, maybe, let's say January of next year, you put your little reservation in today, 28 days, you put your 10 to 25% in, and the remainder will be on completion when the keys are released. And that's a really, really straightforward. And it varies from development to development, but it's so, so simple. It's relatively low for you to be involved in this property. And when we look at the realistic build timelines, we just need to look at what it means for your return. If it's a longer return, everything that I'm saying about Manchester and Liverpool and Leeds and Birmingham, all these amazing regenerations, you could be getting some money before you even get in. And that will allow you as an investor to go, well, I might not be getting cash returns on my monthly yields every month. But actually, if this is a 28-month build, in month 28, my flat could be worth considerably more. I've actually made money on the back end. It's great. So we need to look at what the headline yield is versus the true net yield. And that can sometimes involve service charges and ground rent. Obviously, on new builds now, it's been outlawed. We don't do that. Ground rent's a no-no. Anyone saying to you, we're going to charge you ground rent, hang the phone up, phone us, we'll find you one that hasn't got a ground rent. Management fees, voids, maintenance reserves, all of these stuff, it's all just words. Because until that gets completed, it's not something we need to worry about at this moment in time. All we're looking at is getting yourself involved in that and then letting the capital appreciation build up. The right agent, as we just discussed, will guide you through those. And it will factor into what your net yield is as opposed to the headline figure. And it's worth noting. But the real thing here is, look, the off-plan, it is going to be able to buy the best possible unit in an area that is up and coming with modern EPC ratings. That means your tenant's paying less money to Mr. Gas and Electric and more money to you. It's more appealing to them at that stage. And we know that the warranties reduce those maintenance. So again, NHBC, great start. And if we're looking at future regulation, again, building warranties, again, modern EPCs, you're covered. Off plan is going to cover absolutely all of that. You don't want to be left with something next year that you can't actually resell or you can't let when the EPC changes happen. But mortgage considerations, a lot of questions are brought up on that. Okay, I'm sold, Sam. I want to buy. I'm going to get involved. When do I apply for my mortgage? Well, it's usually within 6 months of the completion. And any good broker will just often benchmark where the market is. So if we are coming into the end of the year and there is going to be a government change, and I say that with a smile on my face, we are going to see either the Labour do what they need to do and Andy Burnham will come in, or somebody else, or we'll see a Tory government or a right-wing government. Either way, there will be government changes. All of those governments will be focused on inflation. They will be focused on all the economic factors that drive it down to go, we've done a better job than the previous government. So if you buy today and then apply for the mortgage when that happens, you're better off. It's great. And a good broker will usually tell you that 6 months is usually the holding place for that. But banks being what banks are, they often extend, and a broker again will just benchmark the market, and we can supply some really, really good brokers that will do that for you. The only thing that I want people to be aware of in this little summary that I'm whipping through is that the stress testing, just make sure that your investment holds against the rate of movement and void periods. We have to be aware of that, but a good agent will guide you through it. A good broker will guide you through that. And again, use specialists, surround yourself with the best people. And what we can then do is we take all of that advice in, get your reservation in, get your exchange in, worry about the mortgage when you're 6 months from completion. We're not going to see your 6% headline yield turn into a 3.5% because you haven't surrounded yourself with specialists throughout.
Thank you, Sam. So Sam has given us some really good information there. So I want to ask him to give us his number one takeaway from that section. What should all our viewers, what's the main thing that our viewers should always calculate before their reserves?
For me, you're likely to be wanting to have your net yield. That's the most important thing. Because for us, if we know that you are going to receive X amount a month, but X covers every cost that you will have to put up with, you know that you are going to have some money on the back end of this. If we're stress testing, and again, I keep going back to it, surround yourself with specialists, we will see that you will come out of this investment, even when the ground gets a bit ropey and things happen in this market, which they often do, as long as that net yield gives you a figure that you're financially comfortable with, it will be a good investment. And a lot of the investors I've spoken to, I mean, I can't think of one off the top of my head that has not done that calculation and has not come back to me to buy again, because ultimately the market often outperforms even the most pessimistic. And when that net yield is your protection layer, let's make sure that your monthly, okay, how much am I out of pocket each month? How much am I going to have to spend here? What's going on here? If I get a void period, what's going on? How long can we last in that? If you've got a nice net yield that is a true reflection of your finances, you will be fine. Let's work that out first.
Brilliant. Thank you again. So final point now, and I love this one because it's one which almost nobody thinks about. Be honest, viewers, people watching on demand, is this something that you've thought about straight away? Your exit. And why does that matter so much in off-plan, Sam?
Well, look, I think whenever I mentioned the happy idiot earlier on in the call, and there are a lot of them, and I know that the investors that we're speaking to, they're educating themselves, so they will not fall into that category. But there are a lot of people that just think about the buy. They think about the now, and that's it. Brain switches off. What we're looking at. But real smart money investors that come back time and time again and are building wealth for themselves, their family, for their business, whatever it is, they think about the buy and the sell. It's so, so important. And I think for us in CityRise, there's a general consensus that we're on a bit of a cyclical wheel. 1 minute, it's property prices are shooting through the roof. Sell and buy another area of regeneration. It's a great strategy. Alternatively, refinance. Get the money in. If you're putting in your 40 to 70,000 pounds as you deposit today, and you gain that back and you get 140,000 pounds worth of equity, you pull all of your equity out and you remortgage, refinance it. You've then got another 70,000 pounds to buy another property with, and you've got your initial 70,000 pounds back. In that situation, you've basically got two flats and you've got your initial investment back. Why wouldn't you do it? But a lot of these people that are coming into investment, and a lot of people that are just, I've had a payout, I'm doing this and doing that, they're not necessarily looking at those strategies and not even aware of refinancing as an option. So the three main exit routes that I will advise these people that aren't aware: let's have that long-term hold. Let's rent that out. Let's make sure that we're getting your mortgage paid for by somebody else. It's a great, great person to be in. If we're then looking at sell at completion to a homeowner, you've picked the best unit, you've got your contract, you've exchanged, your 10, 15, 25% has gone down. We now know that the market's moved forward. Homeowners, we know they cannot buy anything without seeing whether it's a Miele kitchen. Oh, is it herringbone flooring? Okay, I don't know. These are the people that are going to come in and go, actually, this is worth a lot. You're holding the keys without even getting a tenant in there. And that could be a real good sell on completion. It's a really, really good idea of doing it. And if we're then looking to refinance and pull our capital out to reinvest, it all depends on the market. It all depends on the investor. Each strategy really suits each individual investor. There's no one answer. There's no magic wand that isn't going to be the same for everybody. And again, just to hark on, speak to a specialist. But your exit strategy should influence what unit you go for, the type of development you go for. If you're buying it, what's the owner-occupier appeal? What's the rental appeal? If you're planning to sell this on, it's going to be a very different market. So the unit that you choose, to go back to point 2 or 3, 2 units in the same block, not necessarily the same, not even in this situation. And I think a lot of off-plan investors I've worked with, they're building those portfolios by recycling those capital. And that's exactly what I was talking about here, pulling some finances out. So look, there's a lot of different things going on in this subject, but you've got to think about the strategy. What I'm buying it, I'm getting excited about. I want to buy the property now. I want to buy it from you. Let's talk about the sell. Hang on, 2 seconds. What are you telling me? We have to really go down that. And the importance of buying in location with a really strong resale market, not just a strong rental market, that's going to drive your refinance. That's going to drive your sale. That's going to give you the exit strategy. So that is where we're seeing the market conditions at the moment. Some of the best opportunities, Manchester with that £8 billion worth of regeneration. The short-term lets in the area are going to be unbelievable. They're going to be through the roof. So you look at that and go, I could refinance. I could sell that on at that point. Owner-occupiers in the area. A lot of corporates are going to be moving in there. Hopefully United. I'm not a United fan, but they get Champions League football. They sign a few players. All of a sudden, midweek is buzzing around there. That could be a local businessman that runs Airbnbs. These are all the types of things that I think about that you as an investor maybe don't. So it's tailored to you. It's tailored on market conditions. But if we're looking at big areas of regeneration and we're looking at where you can get your money out, the investment becomes alive. It becomes money. It becomes real. It's not just a bit of paper that a local agent has said, well, you're buying it to this place and I don't know what happens next.
Brilliant. So the strategy is set before you reserve, not after completion. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think I went off with a bit of a ramble there, just to confirm that. Set the strategy. Just set the strategy early on. It's really, really simple. I think the clarity of strategy is what separates us from investors that scale from investors that get stuck. Yep. That sounds like an incredible line off the top of my head, but it's so true.
I like it, Sam. We can copyright it. So that, honestly, that was genuinely excellent. And I think something which I've not assumed but has actually happened is the webinars that I've done so far, I've always learned something. So hopefully everybody watching now and everyone that watches on demand, they've taken something from this as well. So yeah, I'm going to recap on, I've been making some notes as you've been talking, Sam, and I'm going to recap on the top 5 things for everybody watching now and everyone that's going to tune in on demand. So my top 5, 1, location and regeneration, buy ahead of the story, not after it's been written. Number 2 would be the developer behind the build. Your investment is only as strong as the people delivering it, I think it's fair to say. Number 3, the unit selection. The right development isn't enough. You need to get the right unit within it as well. And as Sam has kept saying and reiterating throughout this, speak to the specialist, which is our investment consultants. Let them tell you what they think is best. Number 4, the off-plan financial model. Understand the true numbers, not the headline yield. And number 5, know your exit before you enter. Strategy comes first and the property comes second. I think I might copyright that one actually for myself as well. So for anyone watching who wants to take the next step, Sam, what would you suggest?
I think I've said it once or twice, and I think for anyone watching, you might rise a smile. Speak to a specialist. What are we doing? I think for me, I love this job. I'm very clearly passionate about it, and I know that my team are too. The investors that we continually see scale and really generate wealth and change careers into property are people that have done that. And the very first step for anybody, it's very, very simple. Let's book a call. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about the capital that you have. Let's talk about where your investments are currently. Let's just have a general. It doesn't necessarily need to be a hard sell. Go and buy in Manchester because of all the reasons I said in the seminar. No. It all depends on each individual person's situation. And I and my team will always have time for a 20-minute chat, impartial, free advice. We are specialists. We love to do it. And if we don't work with each other today, maybe some point in the future. So for us, request whatever information you need from us, book a one-to-one, and we will help you make these decisions and make some sense of what at the moment is a fantastic opportunity to buy in the UK market.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam. So we have had a few questions that have come through. If you could give us sort of your short, sharp answers to these, Sam. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so question 1. Is now a good time to buy off plan with where the interest rates are?
Oh, great question. Look, it's a really salesy thing, and you'll forgive me because I'm ahead of sales, but the best time to buy a property was always yesterday. Always was. If we look at where the market is, we can see that in the last 10 years, and this is a stat that I always pull off to my head, so it's not necessarily a quick answer. We've had COVID, we've had Brexit, we've had stamp duty, we've had the government, we've had absolute reforms to stamp duty, we've had it all. If you look at where the property values have gone in those 10 years, they have increased exponentially. And it goes back to that supply and demand, and there's a reason for it. And again, if you book a one-to-one, we'll send you a graph that states all of this. But when we look at where the interest rates are, we've just had a third consecutive hold of these existing rates, right? So we're at 3.75. This time last year, we was around the fives. So if you're buying off plan today, you're paying today's price for tomorrow's money. Inflation rates are coming down, and we are seeing this growth. We're not going to have a COVID again. We can't possibly have a Brexit again. So we know that things are stabilizing, and it will be too late if you wait until the end of the year, because what happens when the good news lands, everyone floods the market, prices go up. If you buy today, you're locked in. So today is definitely where we are. And I think the fact that this week we held where we are at 3.75, yes, I'd love to have seen a little 3.5. I do agree that that gives us so much stability for the next coming months. And those that are buying now, really, it's the last corral. We're on that roller coaster, and we're about to really go into the stratosphere, and we're turning the corner. Do you jump on now, or do you wait and have to pay more?
Thank you. And for everybody watching, that was a short, sharp and snappy answer for Sam. So thank you very much for that, Sam. Another question. I think this has probably come off the back of something you mentioned a little bit earlier, Sam. What happens if the developer goes bust mid-build?
Really simple. If you've got your money protected by an NHBC warranty or similar, you're completely protected. There's a lot that goes into this on a solicitor's, and we would always say that, look, when I say surround yourself with specialists, that goes to your solicitor as well. A developer can go bust mid-build, but if you haven't done your due diligence, you are looking at some really bleak options. This is where we can help out. We can give some impartial advice. But if it is a warranty provider that is on there, you're going to be absolutely fine. You're covered. A lot of the major banks and a lot of major lending will also protect against that up to a certain value too. So there's options. But again, get the right people to give you the answers.
Brilliant. Thank you. There is sort of 4 or 5 more, but they're similar to a couple you've already answered. So I'm going to give you 2 more, Sam. Should I, and this is actually a conversation I hear the guys having quite a lot, should I buy in my own name or through a limited company?
It's a case by case, always. And, for us, limited company is the go-to. A lot of people will see huge tax benefits from it. I'm not a financial advisor, nor is Matt. neither is any of my team. So we will put you in the direction of someone that can answer those. And I see a lot of investors that I've worked with, they buy through limited companies in order to establish some of those tax breaks that they can get. There are lots and lots of benefits to it, but it's not for everybody. And there's no real benefit to not buying. So I would always say, if it's you're going to buy on my own, or do I start a limited company? Yes, limited company, really, but make sure that it works for you financially and that you've got the facilities and the tools and the specialists to really see you through that transaction.
Brilliant. Thank you. So last one then, and I think this is a really good, it's quite a simple one, but I think it's a really, really good question, something that I think a lot of people will be pleasantly surprised at. What's the minimum amount of money I need to get started?
Well, I mean, the minimum you need to get started is a phone call, and you can get on the phone to us and we can help get you on the books. But a more official answer, look, we've got stuff from as little as 20 to 30,000 pounds in that deposit level. For us, there is no limit to what we can do and what we can stretch. There are different schemes, there are different investors that are out there, but the minimum you need to get started is a telephone, and you need to use that telephone to give us a call, and we can talk you through the strategy that will work for you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam. I hope everybody has enjoyed that and learned as much from Sam in the last sort of 45 minutes as I have, and I genuinely mean that. So real big thank you to you, Sam. For everybody watching now, and anybody else, there'll be a replay of this sent to your inbox tomorrow. Sam and I are going to be doing another webinar shortly, so please do look out for emails and posts on our socials about that. We'd love you to obviously join us and book into that. And if anybody would like to book a meeting with Sam, with one of our investment consultants, to talk about what we've been through today, then please just use the socials, inquire, message us, call us. We're always happy to talk. So thank you very much indeed for attending. People who are watching on demand, hope you've enjoyed it as well, and we'll see you again soon.